and my name's Chloe, if you don't know me, based in Manchester. And I'll be moderating this session on the for the Academic Global Action for Sustainable Games Industry. Let me get the title right. So thank you everybody for coming along. So in this meetup today, we're going to be hearing from two researchers in the field of sustainability in games. I will introduce them in a moment to talk about their projects. Before we do that, let's hear from everybody here, just very, very briefly, 30 seconds, who you are and why you're participating in this group, just so that we get a sense of who's in the room and why. So, I'll go first. I'm co-lead of the Manchester Game Research Centre here in Manchester, and we're running a project on games and sustainability. So obviously we're very interested in all the work that's going on in this area. I will ask Andre next, if Andre is available to just pop in.
Right, the very first one. So yeah, my name is Andre. I work in Munich in the intersection between business and technology in a little R&D company here. I'm in the call today because I know Torsten actually, and I saw a LinkedIn post that seems cool. So I clicked register. And then when I read the agenda, I realized that there are actually maybe some cool insights that I can gain here, because in a lot of the projects that I work on, we're able to suggest different angles for like really early prototypes. Like in automotive, gaming is becoming like a real thing now. So I thought, why not?
Why? Great, good reason. Excellent. Thanks, Andre. We've got Andrew as well. If you just want to pop a message in chat, that's also
Hi,
fine.
everyone. Yeah. Were you talking about me, Andrew?
I was.
Okay, yes, sorry. So you can see from my screen, I'm from the University of Melbourne. I'm doing my PhD in arts and cultural management. I've been basically doing sustainability research and policy development and project management out in the Pacific, based out of Fiji for the last decade plus. And I'm in my third year of my PhD. I'm looking at proactive climate response framed through near future hard science fiction short stories depicting future scenarios, social imaginaries. One of them deals with gaming around modeling the EEZ of Niue, which is a 100 square mile island, 200 nautical miles in every direction out from that, most of its marine protected area. So yeah, the intersection of sustainability and gaming is part of my dissertation. Then I also work as a research fellow at the Melbourne Center for Cities, where I'm working with Magpie, the gaming group here, and there's some digital twin projects and looking at resource management and governance in practical terms at an institutional level. So happy to talk further about this with anyone. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Andrew. You can see in the chat we've got Elisa and Alina, who aren't able to come on the mic today, but hello to both of you. Oh, we've got Julian as well.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Wait a second. One microphone. So better, hopefully. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Julian. I'm a researcher from Germany, and I'm currently trying to develop a research data set on the power consumption in video games for next year or so. So that's me.
Great, thank you. That sounds super useful. And we've got Kevin.
Hi, I'm a new PhD student at Uppsala University. I'm a colleague of Ossian's on the Game On project, and also a colleague of Pars. So, hi.
Hi. I'm going down my list. We've got Marilyn as well. Maybe Marilyn's not available to come on camera. That's fine. We've got Ossian. Is Ossian here?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Ossian, PhD student at Uppsala University. Working on game sustainability in several ways, qualitative mainly, but what Per will be talking about today is more of it's a qualitative, but it's reporting. So I've been helping out with the work for Per's presentation, or the underlying research and paper we're working on, even though Per is very much leading this effort. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Ossian. And we've got Patrick, a former speaker in this group. Patrick's there to quickly say hi.
Hello, I'm Patrick. I'm at the Games Department in Uppsala, and I talked a while ago about our book and teaching sustainability together with you, Chloe, so that was fun. But nice to see you all.
Great. We've got Sonia. I don't know if you're there, Sonia, to pop in and say hello.
I'm there with with all my mind and my heart. Thank you, Chloe. Hi, I'm Sonia. I am a professor at Cologne Game Lab to Köln for media and game studies, and I've been researching on games and sustainability for the past few years on a project together with Chloe, and also supporting the SGA as a board member. So very excited to be here today and to hear your talks and exchanges. Thanks.
Thank you. And Rachel? Rachel's
Hi,
here.
yeah.
Hi, Rachel.
I work at the Blekinge Institute of Technology in Sweden, teaching sustainable game development to our various game programs. But also we're starting up some research in the area about what game developers can do, what they can do in the design of the game to improve sustainability performance. Yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Very sorry, Rachel. I thought my phone was on silent. Thank you for introducing yourself. We've got Tianya.
Yes. Hi everyone. I'm a master student in game in Uppsala University. Me and my teammate Tin is currently planning a conference about sustainability and small game studio. And very glad to meet you all.
Great, thank you for introducing yourself. And I think lastly, and I'm sorry if I've missed anybody, we've got Zhuyu.
Oh, hi, I'm Kim, and Jamie just introduced me, and I'm
okay. Great.
Sorry, I have some laptop issue that I can't open my camera.
Don't worry. Thank you for introducing yourself, and welcome everybody to this session. I see a few of you have introduced yourself in chat as well. So just to introduce what we'll be talking about today, first of all, we have Thorsten Busch from the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, who's going to be giving us an overview of theoretical debates about the meaning of sustainability and the implications for this for both society and the games industry. And Thorsten's senior lecturer in the School of Management and Law, where he's focusing on digital business ethics, technology ethics, digital games, ethics, and sustainability. So I'm going to hand over to Thorsten to begin the first presentation, and then I will introduce our second speaker afterwards. And we will leave discussion until the end of both of those presentations.
Okay, good to know. Well, thank you very much, Chloe. I appreciate that. And hi, I'm just gonna imposter my way through this now, because apparently there's an expert audience out there. That's a shocker for me, because I prepared this, because hashtag know your audience, right? I prepared this little talk for industry practitioners more than, academic experts. But it's fine. We can totally handle this, no problem. So me is this person here. I used to show my Twitter account when I introduced myself during presentations, but now that this whole thing has happened and I don't do business with fascists, I'm just going to show you like a sort of the least worst network I'm on, which is LinkedIn, which is still terrible, but you can find me there. And the picture you see here shows you the Atlantic Ocean and my phone in Montreal and my computer in Europe, because that's how I've lived my life for a long time. I'm now based in Zurich to simplify my life a little bit, and I'm a pretty ivory tower academic, I'd say. I don't have any industry affiliation or any kind of hands-on knowledge of games. So what I'm going to be presenting today is just a sort of observation from that ivory tower perspective, and I would love it if you could let me know if I'm entirely off track with these little observations that I want to share with you here. So I've structured this in extremely sophisticated fashion. I'm going to talk about a how, a who, and a what, and that is basically the talk. It's going to be super short. We're aiming for like 10 minutes here because my main goal is to discuss things with you and get your perspective. So starting with the how, what kind of how am I even talking about? I'm talking about how we talk about sustainability. And that has been a thing that I've noticed where if you're in the game long enough, and I've been in the sustainability game for, I don't know, like too long, just frankly, then you notice that outside our lovely little bubble, many folks are quite sick and tired of hearing the same old song, right? I'm showing you like a bunch of stills here from Casablanca, the lovely movie where it's like, play it again, Sam, right? And Sam is just like, no, 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 I don't want to play this song again. It's just going to get me into trouble.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I can't see your slide. Oh, I can see your slides. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, actually, you can't see my slides. That's weird. Okay, shall we try this again then?
Different screen. That must be my setup. I apologize for interrupting you. I just wanted to check. Alina can see the slides.
Can I get feedback from everybody else?
This is good. Okay.
Okay.
Carry on. I will not interrupt you again.
Well, Chloe, I'm very sorry. I can describe this to you if you like. We can find ways of trying to engage you. I have very visual slides though. That's unfortunate for you then, but I'm happy to see that everybody else seems to be okay with this. Okay, so let me know if there's any other kind of tech drama happening, okay? But the thing is that we've been preaching to the choir quite a bit, right? That's kind of my message here. So in terms of how we're talking about sustainability, it looks like that how is very much intended for a specific audience, and we sort of captured that audience already. And now what we've been faced with, which I'm sad to report, is like a very, very strong anti-woke backlash, right? And so that has consequences about how we talk about sustainability, both in terms of how we talk about it like publicly, because we might get attacked from all kinds of positions, but also how we address sustainability needs of practitioners in the games industry and other industries as well, right? So we now have to factor in this whole thing, which to me brings up the issue of framing, right? We have to know what kinds of frames we want to activate and what kind of audience that we're talking to. And most of the time, at least, I notice this about my own work. Like I spend too little time thinking about how I communicate sustainability issues and too much time thinking about the sort of substance matter of it, right? And increasingly, that is to my own detriment. I'm noticing that I'm preaching to the choir most of the time. I get to have people pay attention that are already into sustainability issues, but we're hitting a wall with like trying to bring new people into the fold, right? And so this is where I have a challenge here that's sort of a thing we want to discuss on every single level I've brought here. I have brought a challenge. So for the how, I present you with a framing challenge, which is how do we raise important issues like sustainability without pissing people off, quite frankly, right? Because we're already seeing this, nah, come on, I've had enough of that topic. And so here's a positive example, and that is the SGA, right? Like this is literally homepage SGA. And I've noticed that the language here is just very cleverly chosen, right? So this is how the SGA, upon first contact, presents to industry folks, right? It's the games industry should lead the way on sustainability, right? So we're grabbing the game audience sort of by their achievement mentality. That's like a very clever move. So we're talking to people the way that this audience like requires to be talked to. And then we're like all about leadership here, right? And the goal is to make the games industry the leader in sustainability. So for me, that means we don't have to actually dig into the substance matter of sustainability here, but we want to make sure that this, like an industry audience understands that it's about either being like a leader or a laggard, right? And so you issue a challenge, and I think that's language that works very well in games industry circles. So I've been impressed with this, right? And then it's setting ambitious and achievable standards for environmental and social responsibility. So then here's the challenge first, but then here's what we're going to try and deliver. I think that's a clever way to communicate, like in an audience-specific way, that there's a challenge that we want to address. And then we're going to dig into the nitty-gritty of what that actually means later, right? But like the SGA is doing a really darn good job in my book on the how when it comes to sustainability, okay? That means we can pat ourselves on the back here, and then we can move on to the who. And this is where things are also quite complicated. If you look at things like you all know, right, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, for instance, these are things where companies and industry practitioners were just not the intended audience originally, right? Like this is policy, state level stuff. So when we're thinking about these 17 lovely goals, we can all get behind the goals fairly easily, but then who is actually tasked with performing the work that leads us to achieving these goals, right? And so then it takes a lot of sort of translation work to break these down into industry specific and like company specific and perhaps even developer specific ways of talking about it, right? So we all understand that SDG 12 is about responsible consumption and production. But what does that mean for my studio? What does that mean for my workplace culture? All these kinds of things are things we have to break down, right? And I think at this level here, SDG level, World Economic Forum level, right? We're talking about sort of important people, right? This is usually how people that have power get together to decide upon the fate of the world in so many ways, right? And that is also something that is difficult to then translate into what does my little Swiss game studio do when it comes to managing things like crunch or the environmental impact of like the game engine we use or whatever other kind of practical question, right? So the challenge here when it comes to the who is that we have an inclusion and a scaling challenge that I can sort of observe as an outsider, right? So whose important issues like sustainability should we address, right? And how do we find the right issues, the right scale, the right audience? This is an ongoing challenge where I'm noticing that we need to get back to sometimes the very boring work of like building stakeholder networks, right? And for an organization to understand what its materiality situation is. So that means what issues are important to our stakeholders versus what important issues are there for us as the company. What kind of issues does our company influence, right? In terms of, for instance, energy impact and CO2 emissions that we're producing, these kinds of things. That is extremely boring work. I'm very happy somebody's doing it, right? But it's kind of a difficult job to make people care for this. Everybody at leadership level can easily care about like these lovely big time strategic goals, right? Like we're going to be sustainable in the abstract. That is easy to get behind and to make commitments to, but then somebody has to do the actual dirty work of like making the rubber hit the road. So again, that's where the SGA is like desperately needed, it seems to me. Moving on then, finally, to the what, and that is, what does sustainability even mean? And this is where I just want to quickly show something that fascinated me a few years back. There's this guy, Mr. Elkington, who was or has been actually, still ongoing, still trucking. Mr. Elkington is a business consultant, and in the 90s, he basically came up with the triple bottom line. And in 2018, he issued this little piece here in Harvard Business Review, which is a business school journal for business practitioners, right? So managers are supposed to read this and learn something about their management practice from this. And this is an interesting thing because it's a recall. John Elkington said, hey guys, I put out this theory like 25 years ago. You all been doing it wrong, and I'm really mad about it. And so I'm issuing a recall of my theory because all of you business practitioners, you've messed it up. And the reason they've messed it up is because apparently lots of people mistook his meaning. And the reason behind that is here. This is the classic triple bottom line, where the idea is that we have not just a financial bottom line as a business, right? That's the profit dimension here, the orange bit in the lower right-hand corner. But we also have an environmental bottom line to deal with at the end of the year. So that's the red part here in the lower bottom left part of the corner. So at the end of the year, what kind of environmental impact have we had as a business? And then also there's a people dimension, right? There's a social sustainability situation here that's up top. So at the end of the year, what kind of impact have we had on the people that work for us, our stakeholders around us, all these kinds of things, right? Now, Elkington says, I guess I have to recall my theory because all you terrible business people out there, you've been playing this wrong. You've been sort of thinking this is about trade-offs, right? So this year I'm going to focus on the profit dimension. And then, maybe next year I'm going to focus on the people or the planet dimension. And Elkington says in this HBR piece here, right? He says, you've been doing it wrong. What I meant was all of these three dimensions have to be sort of served at all times and constantly so. And so you cannot play off like people versus planet versus profit. That makes no sense. And I wasn't talking about profit for like your company only. I was talking about, does your company contribute to a greater economic ecosystem around you, right? So that's the kind of thing that he then got pretty mad at, which I found fascinating to see. And that's a conversation that to me indicates that when we talk about sustainability, we must make sure that we don't only talk about one of its dimensions only, right? We never want to talk about it in isolation. You want to talk it in a sort of packaged deal kind of thing. And so that gives us a definitional challenge, which is what kind of sustainability or what kind of impact are we even trying to achieve and for whom, right? So that might be a boring definitional question, but really how we define sustainability then changes what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to manage this. And I'm an old person officially now, so I have 90s references all the time that nobody understands. But if you've seen The Big Lebowski, which is the best movie that has ever been made, of course, then you really know that we need a rug that ties the room together, okay? And sustainability is that, right? For me, sustainability has the potential to be a concept that ties lots of good things that we want to achieve in this industry together, but we need to be careful then how we actually use the term and what we mean by it and how we can talk to people to get them on board with that. An alternative to that is also not bad, but lacks this sort of punchiness, I think, is the European definition of CSR, which is companies have to pay attention to their impact on society. That's a good conversation to have. And there's lots of overlap with this idea of sustainability, but it's an additional conversation. So sometimes I feel like it might be better to just have this one conversation, and sustainability probably is a good wording for that. That concludes my how, my who, and my what. And with that, I'm ready to chat with you. But for now, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand it over to Per. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And there are a couple of comments, I think, in the chat, but we'll come back to those after Per's finished his talk. So I'll just briefly introduce that, and then you can start sharing your slides. So Per Fors from Uppsala University in Sweden will be presenting on the early findings of an analysis they've been undertaking there on the sustainability reporting practices in the Swedish game industry. Some of you who were there at the summer school, the strategy summer school in Warsaw recently, will see that we did a little bit of this ourselves, and it's fascinating reading. So really interested to hear what you've found on in your investigation. So Per's a teacher and researcher at the Division of Industrial Engineering and Management, where his research focuses on ICT, ethics and sustainability. So I'm going to hand over now, and then we will have our discussion at the end.
Yes, thanks a lot. I'm moving around a little bit here. I'm at Tech University. Obviously, the Wi-Fi isn't working very well. I'll try to find my presentation here at least. Yeah, here it is. Good. You have to tell me if I'm lagging. I have to move again, but I'll try this place for now. Okay. What am I sharing? Let's see. Can you see the slides now? Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, they're good.
Okay, so okay, good. Yeah, so this is actually a presentation which I have recycled from a conference I went to 2 weeks ago in Paris about corporate responsibility. So I've been trying to make it a bit shorter, but then it just turned out that I've crammed all the slides with a lot of text. So I'm not sure if it's actually shorter, but I'll try to keep it brief. Whoop. Just hide that. Okay, so my name is Per Fors. As you said, I'm an assistant professor in industrial engineering and management, and I am part of this project where Ossian, who you also just met, is also part of. I'm co-supervising him, and the third author of this paper in this particular project is Ben Abrams, as he's a research lead at SCA, so you might know him, all of you, and I think it might become apparent why he's in this project specifically when I start talking about it. And the name of the project is Game On, Mapping Environmentally Sustainable Trajectories for Video Games, and it's focusing on gaming habits, behaviors, practices in the context of Sweden. It's funded by the Swedish Energy Agency, so it's mainly focusing on environmental sustainability, CO2 emissions, energy consumption, all of that good stuff. And this paper is part of that project, and specifically since I'm in like engineering and management, I'm interested mainly in what companies do. So this is a study on the industry, so to speak. So we're not interested in like how individual companies perform. We're mainly interested in looking at like taking a more holistic perspective on the industry as a whole, because there is a lot of research, or not a lot of research, but a few papers at least, who have looked into the like reporting practices of the Swedish video game industry, but they haven't really, I mean, they're mainly case studies. So they've looked into like the biggest 5 companies maybe, or biggest 3 companies. So we're trying to make a more of a holistic view here to see how they perform in terms of sustainability reporting. Yes, so yeah, as you can see, this is very conference-like. Ambitions with this study and so on. So we're looking at the Swedish video game industry and how they communicate about environmental sustainability specifically. I mean, we're also interested in social aspects, but since this project is mainly focused on like energy emissions and so on, we're looking at the environmental sustainability communication within the industry. So the main purpose of this study is not to like to give answers to the question, how do Swedish video game companies actually perform, but rather to see like how they are developing in terms of their reporting and communication practices. So maybe like in the future that could be an option, but right now, given the kind of data that we have, we can't really say anything about their actual impact. But I think that like what we might be able to contribute with is kind of, we can point towards some best practices within the industry, maybe some gaps where there is a lacking consensus, or like the practices are immature, and I will come back to that. So I always probably skip through most of the text in this slide, but what I want to say about ICT, because I'm mainly studying not the video game industry per se, but I'm more interested in like sustainability and ICT more in general. And you know, right now it happens to be the focus is on video gaming, but in terms of ICT and sustainability specifically, I think that since the 1990s at least, we have started to take into consideration the environmental impact of ICT, especially since like in recent times, the energy consumption of ICTs and applications have increased a lot. And we have noticed in previous research that there has been an increased focus on like the greening of ICT. So back in the day, we usually focused on like how can ICT be used for different sustainability related purposes, like through efficiency increases, optimization, dematerialization and stuff like that. But with the rise of streaming and blockchain and AI recently, we have started to focus a little bit more about the actual negative impact of ICT itself. But this focus hasn't really reached the video game industry as much. So the video game industry has mainly focused on social sustainability issues for the past decades, because there has been a lot of problems related to social sustainability, like sexual harassment or crunch time and all the things that you're probably very much aware of. But the energy consumption and CO2 emissions and stuff like that hasn't really been the focus, apart from like Ben Abrams' book about gaming and climate change. So I made some graphs and some tables here, and it took me a lot of time. But actually the only thing I want to say about this is that obviously gaming globally is very grow so maybe.
You're cutting out.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's horrible. I'll try to stand up here maybe. So what I actually want to say with all of these numbers is that the Swedish video game industry has been growing for many years, like 30 years in a row, quite substantially, both when it comes to profitability and also number of employees, number of studios, and so on. But since 2023, we have seen a steady decline in profitability, and the industry is actually not growing as fast as it has done in the past. So we will come back to that and how that will maybe affect the reporting practices. So there are some sustainability challenges in the video game industry, as you are probably aware of, and this is some of these are more related to the background of the study, and some of them are probably some findings of this study, and it's a little bit of a mix because I mean, this is a work in progress, so we'll see what is what. But we can see that the emissions from the Swedish video game industry, and this has been proven in reports by the Swedish trade organization, Sweden's game industry, that the emissions are relatively low compared to the turnover, but they are rising. But we don't know how fast they are rising because there are no reliable numbers when it comes to emissions. Actually, there are some companies that measure quite well and disclose these numbers, but the vast majority of the companies are not disclosing their numbers. So it's very difficult to actually keep track of the actual impact of the industry. There has been a lot of challenges related to the scope 3 emissions of the industry, which basically means all the upstream and downstream emissions in the value chain. And these have been there is a lot of work going on how to measure these impacts. But what we can see now from the reports is that only not even a handful of companies, maybe a couple of companies, actually take these emissions into consideration. And the most important thing here is to account for is how the environmental impact of actually playing games, because that's the difficult part. There are no reliable numbers. There are some calculators around, but it's very difficult to measure. But on the other hand, they account for approximately 90 or 99% of the industry's emission if we take into account all of these scopes. So they are very significant, but we don't know how big they are actually. Yes, and also, as I just said, the industry has just started to emphasize environmental sustainability. It hasn't been an issue in the past, but we have started to realize now that it might actually be relevant to look into environmental sustainability too. But what we have found in among these reports that we have looked into is that there is a lot of claims here that the industry is very clean, that products are digital, gaming is less environmentally damaging than many other leisure activities, and also that games can contribute to environmental awareness. And obviously we agree on all these points to some extent, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that we should just ignore these aspects. I think that's not the way to go. So the methodology of the study is that we have looked into I think it's 25, don't really remember now, but there are around 25 companies listed in the Swedish stock market. And some of these companies have to publish sustainability reports, obviously, not all of them. And this is a current limitation, and we'll probably come back to that. And in order to assess the reporting practices, we have to do qualitative analysis. That's what we're mainly comfortable with, instead of a quantitative one, which would have been a different beast. But a qualitative, like a content analysis of these reports, focusing only on the environmental aspects, not the social aspects. So in order to do that, there's a lot of studies that have done similar things, but it's not quite the same. So we decided that we need our own analytical framework or assessment matrix to make sense of the content of these reports. So that's one of the things with this study, that we have developed this preliminary assessment matrix that we're currently using. You don't have to pay attention to the indicators there because they are very much work in progress, but the factors or dimensions that we have identified are quite like what we're interested in. So we're interested in how companies actually disclose their the numbers basically, and based on these numbers, how they set their goals and targets for emissions, especially, but also waste and other environmental aspects are interesting here. We're interested in like, if they are setting goals, how do they envision that they will actually achieve these goals? So we're looking into governance, strategy, policy compliance. We're also interested in stakeholder identification, like how they envision that their companies are being affected by different stakeholders, how they can collaborate with other stakeholders in order to improve, and also the overall report clarity and quality. That's the dimensions that we're interested in. So we have some preliminary results. I've done a very brief analysis before the Paris conference, and we're conducting the more thorough analysis right now. So I've been mainly interested in looking at the impact identification and double materiality, and the rest I haven't really focused on so much. But we can see that there are some strengths when it comes to the reporting practices in the Swedish video game industry. First of all, we were quite surprised to see that a couple, or at least 3 of the big companies, they are assessing double materiality impacts, and that is quite a recent development, I think. We haven't seen that so much in the past. And there is a degree, at least, of some impressive disclosure even at the mid-size firms. But it's very, okay, so we will come back to the gaps soon. There is also a growing engagement with NGOs and nonprofits, and SGA obviously one of them, Playing for the Planet, and so on. And there's a lot of Swedish video games companies also actually engaging with these initiatives, which is quite interesting to see, I think. There's also been this push for more environmental sustainability within the Swedish games industry by the trade organization. So last year they launched a report called Climate Creativity something, but it was actually like pushing the industry towards more environmental sustainability. So there are some strengths here that we have identified, but there's also a lot of gaps. Obviously, there are not a lot of concrete strategies. For example, transition plans, we haven't seen those even at the top among the top performing firms at the moment. How these numbers are disclosed, the methodology differs a lot among the companies, making them quite difficult to compare, I think. And there's also a lack of disclosure of potential positive impacts. Some of the companies do this when it comes to social sustainability, but not so much in environmental sustainability. Yes. Okay, so the only thing I want to say in this slide, actually, that we're running out of time, obviously, is that I think there is a clear consensus, or there is a lack of a clear consensus on what the sustainable Swedish games industry actually is among the companies, and that is a little bit problematic, I think, and something that this research might help to mitigate, probably, because there are a lot of companies that actually already echoes this very optimistic discourse that the video game industry is already sustainable and that they don't need to do anything more because they are already on this, sustainable firm and so on. There is also a group of companies that mainly focus on their own operations, despite the fact that they are actually acknowledging that most of the emissions happen in like downstream scope 3, but they don't really take responsibility for that. And then we have a few companies that actually try to take responsibility along the whole value chain of their operations, which is, I think, a more reasonable approach. But there's a lack of consensus here, and maybe we can make sense of that with this research. Okay, sorry for being so.
That was perfect, and thank you for moving around so that we could hear you. That's excellent. Thank you for our speakers and their excellent presentations and everybody's contributions in the chat. It's been really good this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.